Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Monday, the 13th of November. I'm Derek Clark and I'm joined by a full squad this morning. First of all, Joshua Barry, fresh from his visit to the Tony Macaroni. How's it going, Joshua?
Yeah, good. Enjoyed it. A bit. It wasn't too cold, Derek, and then it did hit me at the end as Chris and I were doing the video. So not all good. Good to see Rangers go into an international break, not an absolute crisis as they have over the last couple. So yeah, looking forward to getting into today's topics.
Absolutely. Chris also joins us and he's got a brilliant piece on the website this morning, folks. We'll talk about it shortly on Ross McCausland. I'd urge you all to go and check it out. How's your weekend, Chris?
Not too bad. Any weekend with 3 points is always a good one. Did a bit of stuff around a bit of house on Saturday. Still putting the finishing touches to the new gaff. And then I say Sunday was dominated by a good win, a decent performance, and finishing off said Ross McCausland piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I was out actually in a pub in Warrington, no less, and met a fellow Rangers fan from Broxburn, which was good. So, yeah, we both enjoyed our Sunday afternoon, shall we say. Right, just before we talk all things Rangers, just a quick word for our podcast sponsors, the MPH Group, who have a brilliant winter boiler deal on offer at this moment in time. If you're looking to give your home heating system a boost, then give these guys a call. They have a Nevian boiler winter promotion deal. When you're up for an installation through MPH Boilers, not only are you choosing top tier efficiency, but you're also getting a free Navian internet controller. The little gadget can crank up your boiler's efficiency to an impressive 98%, and they're also covering the first year service with no added costs. It comes with a 12-year parts and labour warranty, and so it gives you some peace of mind. And also they'll have flexible finance options available too, so you can gear up for the chill and consider making a smart move with MPH and Navian. So there you go, folks. The all-important links are in the description below. Right, let's talk Rangers. Joshua, you were at the game for us yesterday. I think, listen, the pitch is what it is. You're never going to get scintillating football on there, but it was pretty much comfortable for Rangers from start to finish. I know there was a number of controversial VAR calls, shall we say, Rangers goals ruled out and what have you, but Cyril Dessers bundling Rangers ahead in the first half. James Tavernier missing a penalty. Pretty much Rangers dominating the second half also, and then were awarded another penalty following a VAR check, a handball, blatant penalty kick, and James Tavernier made amends like he did against Hearts in recent weeks, showing his mettle to step up to the plate once again and make sure of the 3 points, and that is how it ended. Number of positives from the game, though, Joshua, and one is young Ross McCausland. I think he deservedly was named man of the match from the game. So another great first start for him. Really unlucky not to get his first Rangers goal. I thought it was hugely unfortunate to be ruled out the Abdallah Sima apparent push in the first half, which seemed nonsensical to me, but there you go. But yeah, great performance from the young lad.
Yeah, obviously, as you say, it was a game kind of slightly dominated by VAR, which is always a bit boring. But Rangers could have easily won that 3 or 4-0. I think they were very good in the first, or good, bordering on very good in moments in the first half, because they were effective on, as you say, Derek, a pitch that's quite difficult. We'll come on to speak about maybe a little bit more of what it's shown us and what we've learned overall in this first month of watching Clement's tenure at Rangers. But I think Livingston actually went for it a bit more kind of with their numbers up the top end of the pitch than I thought they would. And the first goal, I think, perfectly epitomised how Rangers were able to use that space. You're absolutely spot on about McCausland. Chris's piece is excellent. We'll come on to talk about that. And that kind of charts some of his journey to this point with coaches who've worked with him at a younger age. Obviously, he's 20 now, so it was a key juncture for him this season. And I think to start on him, Derek, as we've seen him do so far, he's pretty two-footed. He plays with his head up, I think, and that allows him to pick passes. He's not a winger who is desperate to cross from deep. Often when you see young players come into the team, I think you can see them take the safe option. And right from the start of the game yesterday, I don't think McCausland did that. And there was one moment where he actually lost the ball early on, and it wasn't a threatening attack that Livingston created. I think they only had 0.15 expected goals throughout the game, so they never really troubled. But it was a type of moment in a first start that could have knocked his confidence, but it didn't. He goes up the other end and has that shot which flashes just over, wins the penalty, which is probably slightly soft, but Chris and I were kind of in agreement on that one yesterday. It's probably on the periphery, and the goal to have that chopped off is a real sickener, because it's such a good finish into the top corner. But again, that was on his right foot, much like in midweek against Sparta Prague when he came off the bench. Some of the passes he played through were on his left hand side, and he gave, I think, Rangers a direct outlet as well. So he was definitely the main talking point. Aside from that, Dessers gets his goal. It was a bit of a overall kind of Dessers performance. His run was brilliant. I thought for the goal, his finish maybe you got a slight bit of fortune with it, but ends up in the back of the net. And Rangers get the important points, because although they should have been outside the first half, they weren't. And as you say, James Tavernier steps up to take that second penalty, having missed the first one. And it's not quite the pressure that he faced at Hearts against Hearts a couple of weeks before, but there is still pressure on it, because if Rangers were to have missed that and it would be 1-0 for the final kind of 15-20 minutes, Livingston were very much still in the game. So important 3 points, gives Clement some time to work with the players in a far better place than he found them just over a month ago. And yeah, I think McCausland definitely the standout, as we'll speak about a little bit more.
Yeah, I like this from John Adams. He says, I'm all for this 2 penalties a game rule. If you miss one in the first half, you get one in the second half. Yeah, absolutely, John. Only if it applies to Rangers, though, no other teams. Thank you very much. Chris, great piece on the website this morning on Ross McCausland. Were you impressed by his showing yesterday?
I was impressed by his performance yesterday, and I've been impressed anytime he's come on the pitch. And you think back to that, I think it was 6 minutes he got in Limassol that night, and he looked bright even in that 6 minutes, and offered more in that 6 minutes than some of his more experienced teammates did in the time beforehand. And I think since then he's really built himself up. And as I mentioned to Josh last night on the post-match video, how many times in the last few weeks have we done our teams looking ahead to the game, and at least one of us has put Ross McCausland in there. So this opportunity has been coming. He's one of the names that pops up all the times online, pops up all the times on the comments. People were waiting for that moment to see him get that start, to see if he can't just be an impact player off the bench when games are perhaps won and defences are tired. He's obviously going to then look a bit more fresh, I think it was a big challenge for him yesterday to come into a start and try and assert himself on a game. And I think he more than did that. I've also discussed his goal. Really unlucky to see that one chopped off. As Cyril Dessers said post match, I don't think he'll have to wait long to get his first one, because he's an attacking threat. He's head up. He's quick. He's direct. But as the finish showed, he can score goals as well, and that was one of the things that hopefully comes across in the piece this morning. Speaking to Glenn Ferguson at Linfield, he said he scored a lot of goals for them because they played them slightly more central. Rangers have obviously used them from the right, but I think it does show that he can be flexible, he can be adaptable. But he's an attacking threat, and in a Rangers side that has been not exactly clicked in terms of an attacking threat at times this season. He just offers something different. He's more of a winger than Cantwell. He ticks the box in terms of fans love to see young players coming through. Clearly loves the club, great affinity with the club. So I think that there's a lot there to like about Ross McCausland. And again, as I said in that piece this morning, it was really a make or break season for him at 20. 9 times out of 10, if you've not made it at Rangers by that age, it's sorry, there's the door, and you'll go and make a career somewhere. You're clearly a good player if you're still at the club at that age, but you're generally just not good enough for Rangers. But he's hung around, he's put in the hours in pre-season, again, as that piece goes into, and he's been in the right place at the right time. And like all young players, when that chance comes up, you have to take it, and that's certainly what he's done over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, lots of comments coming in on McCausland. This is high praise indeed from Blue Agnew. He says, I think McCausland ended up playing in midfield. Looks like a young Luka Modric, he says. Borna Bear says he needs to beef up a bit slight in weight and muscle. But certainly from his showing so far, I think he has shown that he's deserving of his start in the Rangers team. Certainly yesterday, and going forward, it bodes well. I'm sure that Phil Clement will be not afraid to use him from here on in. Day in the life, Chris said this is a point that was raised to Philippe Clement in his pre-match press conference ahead of the game. He says, you lads think young Ross will sign a new contract. I think talks are ongoing at this point in time. Are you confident he's going to put pen to paper? You mentioned that he loves the club. I think it's just about agreeing the terms, I'd imagine. I don't think he'll be looking to move away, or would he prefer a move away, do you think?
As the manager said on Friday when he was asked about it, until it's signed, it's not signed. But I would be surprised. I think if you look at Rossi's journey in the game, and finally got the chance to play for Rangers, he's now starting games for Rangers. Clearly the manager likes him. The manager has spoken about how he'll give young players a chance, how he wants to develop young players. Ross, in theory, should be in the best place for his career right now. If he does move on, I dare say there's more money on the table somewhere else. But is there the same opportunities? Like he's put in all these years to get to this stage. I would find it strange if he then wants to give that up just weeks or days after making his first start for Rangers. I don't know what other offers he has on the table. I don't know what teams down south fancy him. I'd be surprised if there's not interest in him, given his talent. But hopefully he sees Rangers as the right place to continue his development. That's not to say he won't move on one day, and if he does, that's actually good news for Rangers. It means that his progress has kicked on. He's really realised his potential, and hopefully he's been part of a successful Rangers side. Now, we don't mind players moving on as long as they've done their bit for the club, and the club have then benefited both in football terms and financial terms. So hopefully he sees Rangers as the best place for him, because I think he does add something to his squad. It's not to say he can't be replaced. That's not to say he's suddenly first team on the team sheet. But I think for where he is right now, I think he's in the right place for himself.
Yeah, Derek, he's benefited from a change of manager because Rangers haven't played with wingers since Gio left, and it's a classic example, as Chris says, of that this was a make or break season for him, and he's been ready at the right moment. Because would he have got that chance under Michael Beale? I'm not convinced, because he's a wide player. He's not someone who necessarily, as we've touched upon, he's 2-footed. He's obviously capable of coming inside the pitch, but he's a winger. He's a wide player, isn't he? More so than a number 10. Not that he probably can't play in there. But this suits him. Clement has moved. One of the key changes he's made is he's got two players really in every team. He's got two wide players, and even if they play a little bit more central, he clearly wants an extra player in his team to drive at opponents and take them on and be a bit more direct. I think that's one of the key changes we've seen over the last month. Not only are Rangers playing behind directly in games like yesterday a little bit more frequently, but I think they're trying to go directly at teams a little bit more. We've seen that obviously with Scott Wright when he's played as well. Todd Cantwell on the right has come into that overall talking point as well. So it's a classic example, I think, in football of being at the right place at the right time. But crucially, he's not looked out of place. That didn't look like his first start yesterday. And there's a danger when a young player comes through and they support the club and everyone wants someone who is in that position to do well. There's a danger of maybe looking too much at what he's doing well. I don't think that's the case, because yesterday I do think he was a deserved man of the match. When he came on off the bench against Sparta, he did create 3 really good chances, and good to see someone take their chance after they've been patient for a long while. And as Chris's piece charts, they've put in the hard yards behind the scenes to make that happen.
Yeah, I like this comment from Colin Cameron. He says, morning lads, Ross McCausland's looks a bit like Peter Hoostra. Let's hope for a similar Rangers career. Yeah, he was, I love Peter back in the 90s. He certainly done his job in the 9 in a row era. Interesting point when Cyril Dessers was speaking afterwards, Joshua. I'll direct this to you. He was asked, talk us through your goal. It was a throw-in for them, which we defended well. We have worked on that. I saw Tom Lawrence with the ball, and I know he has a pass that can tear open the defence, and I made the run at the right moment and was able to take it on my left foot, and it went in. Obviously, it was a very happy feeling to finally get the 1-0 on the board. It was fully deserved after our performance. You've got a few little graphics that you're going to enlighten us with, Joshua, but that was an interesting point from Cyril Dessers, something they've been working on with regards to the opposition throw-ins.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the game, I think one of the overall changes we've seen under Clement is that, and the Hearts game at Ibrox kind of epitomises this for me. I think Rangers still have kind of big issues is maybe a bit strong, but maybe big issues when they concede a goal early, which is going to happen at points like they did against Hearts, and the team sits in their box, because I think they're too reliant on crosses, and that's just an overall problem that's bugged them for a number of years. And I think it goes back to the makeup of this initial team. It goes back to the fact that their kind of stress reflex seems to be in moments like this to cross the ball. So that will take longer, I think, to fix. I'm sure if you spoke to most managers, one of the most difficult components of coaching a team would be within that circumstance when a team does drop as deep as Hearts dropped in that game at Ibrox a couple of weeks ago. And it will take Clement time to get his team to excel in those situations. So that's the backdrop. While that is the case, I think what he's come in and done in the immediate sense, and he spoke about this, working to a list of priorities, he's made Rangers, for me, quicker in transition, more direct. And that's important, because when you do face a team that's going to defend and you do have some issues against low blocks, you need to take advantage of every ounce of space you can have. So if we take it back to what Dessers was speaking about in his post-match press conference, this is about 10 seconds before the Livingston goal, before the Rangers goal. And you can see there Livingston have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I think there's an 8th man at the edge of the box inside the Rangers half. There's no other circumstance apart from a corner in that game where Livingston are going to have that many men forward. So although it's probably tending to go, is it, do they really need to work on their structure at defensive throw-ins? If you wind it forward a few seconds and you look at the space, and this is just after Lawrence has played that pass, that type of space that Dessers has to make that run, that Lawrence has to play that pass, that doesn't come up in the game in any other circumstance. Similarly, if you look at what actually broke the deadlock at Hampden, and we wrote about this at the time, and I can put the piece in the comment section. Rangers scored 3 goals, and they were all from either intercepting the ball deep in the half, or they were transition moments. Or the first goal, if you look at where the penalty win actually comes from, it's from a defensive throw, and it's the exact same. If you look at Rangers structure here, they've got, I think it's Jack and Lundstrom on Shankland. They win the ball back, they force the ball backwards, and Danilo gets in to win the penalty. So another example of, okay, Rangers in a game like this, especially in that first half, they don't have many opportunities to attack Hearts when there's space in the defence. So they take advantage of the moments that they do. And if you look at the pass network just finally yesterday, Derek, again, I think it's going to take Rangers time to work out games where Livingston, for example, come to Ibrox and they are deeper and they do have to create space and they do have to kind of bait out a deeper team. But at the moment, what we're seeing them do at the moment, and you can see kind of a 4-2-4 in possession here, is actually play quite directly at moments. I think they're less concerned with needing to keep the ball, for example, when it goes to Borna Barisic. And although he's not, I think he's got some limitations on the ball, he's a fantastic left foot. So if you can encourage him to play the ball down the side to Sima, or try and get the ball over the top and fight for second balls a little bit more. Again, I don't think that's the overall answer long term, but I think it's making Rangers more difficult for opponents to read, because they're a little bit more variable, they're a little bit more direct. They've got a few more players in their team who run at opponents. And again, to go back to that throw-in example, there's really no other example situation in a game like yesterday where Livingston are going to commit that many men forward. It makes sense to use what is their strength, or what is one of their key, their key methods of attack and throw-ins, to use that to their disadvantage and attack from that. So I thought it was just an interesting comment and an interesting insight from Dessers, which shows not only how obviously Clement is trying to focus on the small margins and not to negate the solutions they'll have to find when teams don't come out and when they do just sit in their penalty box more frequently. But I think it's clear, again, going back to Hampden as well, that one of the areas Rangers have improved in is transition. They're making the most of the space that they do have on offer. As we know, having watching Rangers all the time, that isn't always that consistent, but it's been a pretty consistent theme of Clement's time so far. And yeah, I just thought it was something important to note if you look at the origin of the first goal yesterday.
Yeah, one of a number of things that he's improving. You mentioned Lawrence's pass. It was exquisite, as Cyril Dessers touched on after the game. Mark Height says Lawrence assist, amazing. Great to see him back in the starting 11, Chris. I think he's got a wee bit to go to get back to the levels we know he's capable of, but he was one of the positives for me yesterday, seeing him back, especially on that plastic pitch as well. Ryan Jack was another day in the life, says, thought Ryan Jack had another good game. He'd be one player I'd be thinking. I know Rangers are pretty light on numbers in terms of who Philip Clement can pick, but ideally you wouldn't want to risk him on that pitch. But thought those two were pretty decent yesterday.
I thought that both of them were impressive, and I think it bodes well because the manager mentioned on Friday also Nico Raskin due back as well, and all of a sudden that midfield area where for a couple of games it was really Jack and Lundstrom and not a lot there. It's back up. Now got Cifuentes is back in the squad. Also Lawrence is back, played very well yesterday. Raskin coming back, and it now does give the manager options for those midfield areas. I think going forward, it'll be interesting to see what balance he goes for, what dynamic he goes for in there. I think we can all agree that Lundstrom has been very, very good over the last couple of weeks, and you would imagine he's probably the one that's more nailed on than anyone else right now. But who do you then put in alongside them? There's different options in there, and I think it's obviously you can't have too many good players, you can't have too many options. But it will be interesting to see just how the balance of that midfield goes over the next few weeks. Because as me and Josh were saying last night, this chunk of games coming up now between now and the new year, it could really shape Rangers' season if they can qualify for Europe, hopefully win the League Cup, and anything could happen in terms of the title race. Also after leaving Parkhead, we'll have a far better idea of what this Rangers side is actually capable of doing. Everyone is going to have to play a part in that. We couldn't have got through this run just with Jack and John Lundstrom. So as good as it is to see those two playing well, I think the more encouraging thing is the fact that our players come back, and the likes of Lawrence just offers that something different. The pass that he played for the goal was what we really expect from Tom Lawrence. That's what he can bring to the side, and if he can start producing the number of games, and hopefully this is his injury problems behind him now, because he can be a really effective player. That's not to say he starts every single game, but in certain types of situations, he can be really effective.
Yeah, as Chris said, the Rangers, when they come back from the international break, some of the fixtures, some tricky away trips. I know they were pretty weak yesterday, but you can guarantee Aberdeen will be up for the game when Rangers return on the 26th of November, as Chris Boyd rightly put it yesterday on Sky. It is their cup final, so that is a tough game for Rangers heading up to Pittodrie. There's a trip to Tynecastle at the beginning of December as well. And then obviously we've got the trip to Fir Park on Christmas Eve. Also in between that, scatterings of games at Ibrox, St Johnstone, Aberdeen, Dundee, St Mirren in there as well, Ross County before the trip across the city to take on Celtic. So a couple of tasty games in there, Joshua, but certainly you feel that the momentum still build. Well, not momentum, because Philip Clement says that's something that stops in his press conference prior to the game, but the feel-good factor well and truly back at Rangers now. I mean, the cracking atmosphere yesterday at the Tony Macaroni. His record has been, I don't think he could have got any more out of this squad since arriving. I think that he's I know he was asked a couple of times in press conferences if the team are ahead of schedule, but I think even he might be surprised at how much he's got out of this group of players, but that certainly bodes well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I see at that game yesterday, I don't think necessarily under previous managers, and again, it's early on, but one of the early sightings that probably does give you optimism under Clement is that when Rangers score one, they tend to go on and score a couple more at the moment. Or if they miss a penalty, or if they score that first goal, they don't really let up. And I feel previously there might have been more of a pattern of you score a goal, you score the first goal, and then you kind of sit off the game for 20 minutes and you give the opposition a bit of control and you sit in your shape and you protect that lead. Whereas whether it be Hearts at Hampden, or whether it be obviously Hearts at Ibrox as well with those two late goals, whether it be Dundee away, whether it be Sparta Prague in that first half where Danilo hits the post and it could well be 3-0 within under 30 minutes. There is a real pattern of Rangers playing with an intensity that I don't think we've seen for a while. And Cantwell said this in the mix zone the other day, fans feed off what they see on the pitch, and if they resonate with that intensity, even if sometimes it affords a little bit less control, especially in the short term, I think that's to Clement's benefit. So he was asked yesterday in his press conference what the next couple of weeks holds, and I was asking him about, effectively will the players have time off? We have more time obviously in the training pitch. You can watch it on the YouTube channel, obviously. And he spoke about running programs and a couple of days off here or there, but it was by no means job well done over this kind of 3-4 week period. We'll rest for a week and then we'll come back together. he's obviously a very kind of focused and intense individual, and I think that rubs off in the environment that he's creating, and people are liking what they see with him. We'll obviously speak more over the course of the week because we've got 2 weeks to film out about the overall mood and how it's changed and what's still to be done and what's been done so far. Obviously, it only matters if Rangers go on and do something in the future. But if you compare the mood to the one he inherited, Derek, the mood to the podcast after Chris was away at that game in Aris, it is night and day with the same group of players. And yeah, I think there's a lot to be optimistic about after Clement's first month in charge, which, as you say, I think even from his perspective, even though he says he has no expectations, I think quietly he'll be pretty happy with that first month.
Yeah, you asked the manager, Chris, at the tail end of last week what the plans were in the international break. Do you think the break comes at a good time, do you reckon, the time to sort of reassess and work on a few things?
I think it's probably a double-edged sword. I think he would have liked to have kept this run going. If Rangers had a game midweek and had the game next weekend, it just keeps things ticking over. But I do think the chance just to kind of sit back and take stock is not a bad thing. There's also still players that are working their way back up to fitness. So I think he mentioned, I think it was the week before last, about the number of sessions that they've actually had together, full squad on the grass. And in terms of a full squad, it's not happened. So he's not actually had a full hand to play. A lot of the work and a lot of the improvements that we've seen so far have just come through analysis sessions and time spent, or individual meetings with certain parts of the side. So there are a lot of work in the Ed Auditorium at Auchenhowie that we use for the press conferences. And I think it speaks the volumes of the clarity of the manager's messages. That's something that the players have really picked up on, and something that's come through in a lot of their interviews, that he's managed to make such a difference with not a lot of time actually running it through on the grass. So I think having that period over the next fortnight, there will be players who will do extra running. There will be players who are obviously off international break. So it's not like a pre-season where you've got everyone and you can go through an entire programme. But it's certainly more akin to what the manager would have preferred to have, rather than, I say, what he's actually had to deal with. It's been a hectic few weeks for him. It's gone as well as I think he could have hoped for, and as well as he could have expected. But the opportunity now there, and the need for Rangers now is to kick on and to be bigger and to be better during this next run of games. Because, as I mentioned earlier on, after Parkhead, we'll know what the future holds for this Rangers side and what the second half of the season holds.
Yeah, there was a comment that came in, a season-defining run of games. I totally agree with that. This could make or break Rangers' season. Let's get to a few other comments before we wrap up for the morning. Interesting point. Well, first of all, Gary Hillhouse, this was news at the tail end of last week. He says, it was good to see John Lefebvre sign a new contract. Good young player. And looks like Shirley Bassey, Mark 2 in the making. Certainly under big PC. Yeah, absolutely good to see him tied down for the next few years. He signed a contract until May 2026, so he's one that the Rangers coaching staff have high hopes for. So I think that is a very good move all round. Another defender, Josh, who's come in for a bit of praise in the comments, William Burns, says Balogun has been a standout for me. Who would have thought it after coming into the side? Who would have thought he would come into the side, incidentally, at Dens Park out of the blue? But he has been magnificent, is he not?
He has, yeah. Again, I think it was in the piece from yesterday's game. Chris and I touched on it. It was an area of the pitch where Livingston looked to target repeatedly the right-hand side in the way that they shaped their team up with Nubly on that side especially. And Balogun, as he did in the reverse league fixture, won that battle. Rangers, in not having, they've got goals in there consistently at centre-back, but for the last, I guess, probably actually 3 or 4 years, they've never had a consistent player on that left side of defence. It's always been rotation, even back to when Balogun and Helander were kind of rotating that position. But Balogun gives you an ability to kind of go one-on-one with players. He's quick enough to do that. Really dominant in the air in a way that Ben Davies, for his qualities, is not. I thought Ben Davies actually incidentally had a really good game against Sparta, kind of went under the radar a bit. Read the game really well, but yesterday's probably not a game that suits him as well. So to be able to bring Balginen is a big plus. We also saw obviously at Dens Park his ability to carry the ball forward. I think the question always when he came back was how much has he dropped off physically in this last year and how many games can he play consistently. I don't think he's in a position where he'll play every single game for Rangers for the rest of the season, but he's experienced enough and he looks sharp enough that when he does come in, as Clement's spoken about quite repeatedly, when he does come in, he's ready to play and ready to make a big impact. So totally agree with William. I thought he was up there with one of Rangers' best players yesterday. But I think McCausland deservedly wins it in the circumstances.
Yeah, and I'll direct this to you, Chris. A lot of comments coming in about Todd Cantwell. He came on as a sub yesterday, got booked, since took to social media to explain his booking. I think Penroy stuck a leg out to him after watching it. I think he's got a point, but he posted on his Instagram, for context, I got booked here, not even looked at. If I didn't pull my leg away, we wouldn't be most worried about it not being looked at. Do you think he's got a point there? A few comments coming in saying he maybe should keep his counsel. Damien saying here, Todd Cantwell posting his thoughts on his yellow card. Do you think Big Phil is going to be happy about him posting images of the incident on his socials, criticising the ref and VAR? What's your feelings on this, Chris?
How many times have we spoken about Todd Cantwell and his social media use? I think when you have Cantwell in the squad, it's something you just have to accept. Now that's him as a person, that's him as a player. He also likes to interact in that way. I'm sure if the manager's not happy about it, I don't think it'll take long for him to tell Todd Cantwell to stop it. And I certainly wouldn't like to be the man who is told to stop it and then does it again anyway, because I don't think the manager will be. I don't think he'll be slow in coming forward to tell you off again. So I'm sure if the manager has an issue with it, he'll have that conversation with Todd. At first, I thought it was just a bit daft from him and a bit petulant to get that booking. I think it's something he does have to watch a wee bit in terms of the afters. But when you then see the incident again, and certainly when you see the stills, you can understand why he's not happy. The challenge was a bit naughty at that stage of the game. There's no need for it. So one of these ones you can see, almost can see both sides of it. But I think in general, I don't particularly mind Cantwell's social media output. If that's him, as long as it's not kind of targeting MD, and he's doing it in the right way. I don't have a massive problem with it. I know that's something we've talked about previously. I do think he just has to be slightly careful with it and make sure that he's not becoming a target for certain types of players, knowing that they might get a reaction out of him. I think that's something the manager mentioned post-match at Hampden. He'd also been on a booking before, teams then can perhaps try and get a rise out of him. So as long as he's handling himself in the right way on the pitch and with his phone in his hand, that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, I don't mind his social media activity either. I want more TikTok dances though. If he's watching us right now, that one before he signed was superb. So more TikTok dances, Todd, and we'll all be happy with that. Right, I think that'll do us there. Thank you to everyone for interacting with the show as ever. It is greatly appreciated. Just a reminder, we've still got those two fantastic offers on the website just now. £4 for 4 months, or you can take out a year subscription, just £18. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe to sign up. As we touched on, we've got a great piece on there from Chris on Ross McCausland. Do go and check it out. Chris and Joshua were on after the game yesterday for their instant reaction. You can go and check that out on the YouTube channel as well. So plenty to keep you entertained. We're running international break, but we're going to keep the people inundated with content, aren't we, Joshua?
Yeah, lots to come. I think we'll speak a little bit more in depth about Cantwell and his position on the right. Obviously, we spoke about, asked him about that in the mix zone, on Thursday night. Lots more content to come, lots more topics to come. We'll keep everyone as involved as possible. Yeah. And as we said at the top of the show, Derek, obviously the last two international breaks, I think one was signed off by the Old Firm defeat and the other by the defeat against Aberdeen. So slightly a few more interesting topics to cover hopefully this time. But lots to come your way over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, most definitely. Okie dokie. Right, folks, that'll do us there. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, and we'll speak to you again tomorrow. Bye for now.